Hello, hello.
Hi. We have we have closed captions.
We do, yes.
Yeah. Awesome. Great. So good
Thank
to
you very
see
much.
you as we wrap up 2023. Can't believe we've had
Oh,
15 episodes.
yeah, have we really?
Yeah.
Oh my
15. This is
gosh.
this is number 16. So yay us.
Yay, us. And we started in spring. Is
Yeah,
that what?
I think like maybe April or something.
Oh,
So that's
okay.
great. I love the twice a month-ish kind of,
I agree.
not a set routine, but like try to do it at the beginning of the week. So I appreciate us like being committed to this, but not attached to it being so structured.
Agreed. Yeah, that's part of the beauty and fun and fits with our theme to kind of like look back. And it's wild that we've had 15 and it's wild that it's almost 2024. And this does feel like a nice time to kind of look back and think about what's happened and where we're at and what we want to call in for the next year. And yeah, that's fun to do.
Yeah, I've been really reflecting because I've had a little bit more ease in the last week or two compared to the rest of the fall, and just thinking a lot about um yeah, where do I want to put energy and where do I not want to put energy? And you and I were checking in about like winter solstice, and like for some people that's their version of a new year, to just kind of reflect on the previous season or the previous year. And one of the things I've been thinking a lot lately is, starting this, I'm like 5 months into this new full-time job and really loving it. And yet I think part of why I love it, like I love the job and the people. Um, and it's only been successful because in my partnership with my spouse, like we've been able to divide responsibilities differently. And I've let myself like let him do it his way. And versus like delegating it is different than like saying it's yours.
Yeah.
Um, and like fill me in what I need to know. And I feel like that has been a great growth for me and our partnership.
Mhm.
And one of the tension points in our relationship,
Sure.
like in the decades we've been together,
Forever.
is
Yeah.
there wasn't always like that shared responsibility, like that it didn't feel like equally distributed as much
Mhm.
as you can equally distribute responsibility. So
Yeah, absolutely. And would you, I mean, I think I know the answer to this, but I don't want to assume. Do you think that this issue in particular, in terms of like more equitable distribution of household chores and labor, do you feel like that is one of the reasons that your marriage is in just like a categorically different place?
yeah, I think that's part of it. And I think also, I think we are attached to the relationship differently than we were a year ago.
Ooh,
Like
say more about that.
I feel like we almost had to like almost decide to end it all,
Mm,
like literally decide to end it all in order for us to say, okay, let's not act like the 20 something year olds who first got into this relationship, and
uh-huh.
let's act like the 40 something year olds who are here now. Right. And in this season of our relationship, it doesn't need to look like our parents or our friends. Like what would work for us? I think that's the liberation. That's all the anti-racism, anti-oppression stuff, is like, how can we say just because this is heteronormative doesn't mean that we need to do that. We need to participate in that. And I think part of it is like, I think about like, what are my what are my quirks, I guess, for lack of a better word? What are my quirks? What are his quirks?
Mhm.
What is his zone of genius? What's my zone of genius? And I have been the one who's been like the organizer of our family for decades. And how can I let that go? And
Mm.
how can I let him do it, knowing he's not going to do it the way that I would do it, but it'll still get done? And maybe not all of it'll get done. Maybe it won't get done the way I want it, but like, can I let that go? Can I like really let that go in order to give myself less stress? And it hasn't been that hard. And
Okay.
I feel like I've tried it many times and failed. but
Mhm.
like, but each time it gets a little bit better. It evolves.
Yeah. Well, especially for this kind of stuff, right? Like there's a million opportunities every day,
Yes.
or at least one, if not multiple,
Yes.
right? And so there's so much opportunity to practice. And so I love that like you've kept at it and recognized this has been my growth edge in 2023. I think in 2022, it was like setting better boundaries and having different expectations with my husband. But in 2023, it's been more of that like, what's my role in this? And
Hmm.
there's a lot to be angry about, and like so much of that is valid. And I know that it's a dynamic. I know that it's that we've created our own little like fucked up system.
Hmm.
And that I've got a part in that. So like really digging deep for like you're talking about, like what's my role? What's my
Hmm.
responsibility here? How can I do something differently, even if X, Y, or Z doesn't change? There are certain things that he's got to change, right? Like hands down. And he has, which I'm so grateful for. But even if X, Y, and Z doesn't change about his behavior, how can I change mine?
Right.
That will still lead us to better outcomes. And that's been really lovely because I feel like in 2022 was more like had this energy of like me standing up for myself, and it had like an edgy energy to it. And
Hmm. Sure.
2023 has felt so much more gentle and compassionate and collaborative,
Mm-hmm.
which it's been a journey to get here, right? And so I know I couldn't have skipped the other stuff as much as I would have liked, but it's so much better to when there's this an embodied sense of like, he's my person. He's like, we are a team. It is not us, me versus him, like feminism versus patriarchy, like it doesn't
Mhm.
have to have that kind of energy. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's an ease, there's a peace,
Yes.
um, which allows space for other things to like emerge from that. And like if I get to like a real concrete example in my life is our eighth grader um had both our kids take the bus to school, and our eighth grader has been missing the bus this year. And part of it is like I think she has a new hair routine in the morning, and so like she loses track of time in the morning, and probably misses the bus a couple times a week, which means my spouse needs to drive her to school. And there's a part of me that's like, yeah, I wish she didn't miss the bus, right? And younger version of me would have said, oh, we got to solve this problem, right?
Mm.
But I'm like, I'm out of the house by the time all that happens, so like it
This
doesn't
isn't my
really
problem to
impact
solve.
me. Right. It's like if my spouse is okay with like taking her to school a couple times a week, then who am I to get in the way of that? Right. If he at some point wants consultation about like maybe how to address it, happy to assist. Right.
Yeah,
But it's like this idea of like not assuming there is one right way and then imposing or inserting myself in it to say we have to solve this problem versus like this is his domain, right? And I don't need to involve myself in this domain.
100%. I love that. And I even love how you frame that in liberation language, right? Because the way that I've been thinking about it is I've been really working on my codependency, right? Which is essentially instead of being fully responsible for me, I try to control and manage the people around me, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is not cool. So it's not cool for me, it's not cool for them, whatever. Um, but I love the way that you frame that because it is codependency, and it's also assuming that the world revolves around me and that I'm the right one and that there is.
Mm-hmm.
So I love the liberation framework of that. Yeah, just something else to like dig into, right? When like
Mm-hmm.
codependency stuff feels a bit more like a struggle. There's like this other thing that can keep me grounded in the work, because sometimes and I think, I wonder what you think about this. I think for mothers especially, given all of the societal conditioning and gender expectations, I think it's easy to go to a place of like, I am the one in charge and it is my job to do, you know, I think that's an easy role to fall into. So all the motivators and things that we can like really ground into to not do that, the better. The more of those, the better.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love, yes, even thinking about like for years, the school would call me when my kids were sick. And then we would figure out like, you know, which one of us was going to go pick them up. And then I think earlier this semester, like the school called and I was like, oh, yeah, you'll have to call my husband, like her dad or his dad. And since then, they must have made a note or something, because since then I've not gotten any calls, which,
Love
you
that.
know, it's easy now, but I think about, I don't even know if I could shift into that more intense gear anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like I feel like the muscles have been built. So like I don't even know what that embodiment feels like anymore. Like that kind of stress and pressure and
Yeah.
trying to control everything. Like even thinking with like our 10th grader, like I try to think about like when I was a kid, my parents really emphasize like you must go to college, right? They really emphasize that. And like my whole life was geared around do what you need to do to get into college.
Sure.
Um, and, you know, while I would love for my kids to go to college or trade school or whatever is going to like make them happy, trying not to impose any of that on them and just helping my kiddos think through how are the choices you are making now impacting potential future options. So like I'm not going to tussle around grades. Like I'll check in with you on them. I'll ask if this is your best effort. I'll ask like it does it fit with whatever you're trying to achieve. And there's a part of me that's actively working on that. Like the how do I be the best parent I can be without putting pressure on my kids to be a certain way or achieve a certain way or put energy like in a particular way. And that is a little bit more effortful, but still easy at this point.
Yeah.
That I don't feel like I am uh, having all of that stress and anxiety. Like
Yeah.
that is just, I don't want any part of it.
Agreed. Yeah. Agreed. Got it. So I'm organizing in my head. So part of what you're letting go of is any outside expectation that you need to mother in a certain way, that your kids need to perform in a certain way to like meet some unnamed but very strongly felt expectation about X, Y, or Z.
Mhm. Yeah,
Um,
yeah. And thinking that I don't know where these choices will lead, but I'm going to trust that it's all going to be okay.
yeah, yeah, I love that. I love that. And I think I'm in a similar, it looks a little different because our kids are different ages. But I think I'm in a similar place with my kids where it's just I'm trying really hard to do the same thing, to like let go of these even expectations that I think I had of them that were informed by all of these outside forces, right? Um, and I think part of that is living in this like fast, urgent, kind of asleep way that like if we're just going through the motions, that's what's going to be there. We're going to rush. We're going to talk about grades more than it like if I'm not awake and then my kids are not awake, like that's just what is going to come out because that's what's in me. That's because that's
Mhm,
what's in all of us, right?
mhm,
And so what I've been working on this whole year is really fully like let go of this need to rush or like to have things so jam packed because I know for me and our family, like that's the thing that starts to like pull the thread that
mhm,
makes it all unravel, right? And then by trying to really let that go, what I'm really hoping to usher in and make more of a formalized effort is like living more intentionally and like, and I've been modeling that for my kids, but like I want to, for the solstice, we can't do it on Thursday. The winter solstice is this Thursday. I can't do it then, but we're going to celebrate the winter solstice on Wednesday. And that's when I want to talk to my kids about what their reflect on 2023, what are their intentions for 2024, and just have more moments of presence and intentionality, which can only occur in the context of living in a less scheduled, less structured, slower way.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah. And I love that. And I think about one of my kiddos talking about thinking about how do we embody rest and awaken in all parts of our life?
yeah.
And then how do our kids start to use that language in some sort of way? So I think about my kiddo saying, I had better grades a year ago, but I wasn't happy. Right.
Mm.
And to say this year, I'm happier and my grades aren't as good. Right. And so for my kiddo to figure out what's that dance of
Uh-huh.
how can I be happy and content and not super stressed while also meeting my obligations or expectations or whatever they define that as. And that's a life skill that I want
That's right. Exactly.
him and her to develop, because I felt like I spent too much of my 20s and 30s striving and pushing and if I didn't give 110%, it wasn't enough. And there's a weathering effect to that is not helpful. And I think I have to believe that you don't have to do all of that striving and hustling and still live a really good life.
Yes. Right. Right. And that these are the my son has ADHD, and he just started middle school. And so the organizational demands in
Mhm.
middle school are wildly different
Yeah.
than elementary school for him and us, So
Mhm. Yeah.
it's been an adventure. And one of the things that we're trying to do is help him stay organized. And so we're constantly looking at his homework log, and we're logging into Power School. It's where the grades are that also show missing assignments. But then to constantly have conversations with him about this is not because we expect you to have all A's. This is not even about your grades or your GPA. This is about helping you figure out how to be organized in a way that doesn't make you feel like shit about yourself.
Mhm.
And that's the thing.
Right.
And but without that really slowed down intentional conversation, we figured out that the message that he was getting is oh my God, my grades really matter. So when his GPA would go down, because a teacher just didn't turn an assignment
Mhm.
when he was expecting them to, he'd get really sad and stressed. So these last few months have been an unpacking of all of that. If your grades matter to you, then we want to help you
Right.
do what you feel like you want to do to feel good about you. And a lot of this for us is about a life skill that we want to teach you, as opposed to hitting these standards and metrics and
Right.
blah, blah, blah. But it is constant, it's a constant process of having to witness even the language we use
Mhm.
about my husband just said something the other day oh yeah, junior high is like a trial run for high school, and then high school is when it really matters. And all of it sat so uncomfortably for me, and I'm going to need to circle back with Nick and be like, I get where you're coming from, and and
Mhm.
but we need to slow down enough to have that conversation and really
Yeah.
through, so I'm not just policing what he says to our
Mhm.
kids.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It makes me think of we're trying to act as this external frontal cortex for our kids,
Yeah.
helping them be able to zoom out or look at themes or figure stuff out. And like that feels like incredibly valuable,
Yeah.
and tailoring it to like who our kids are.
Yes.
Right. And thinking about both my kids are ADHD. And so like that kind of organization, like I am always monitoring as someone who's like neurotypical for the most part, is like, how could I sometimes be oppressive to my kids because they don't organize in the same way that I do? It doesn't come with the same ease for them. And like, how do I not have like power over when they don't want to use planners and they don't want to use like the systems that I think are really helpful? Like, I'm just going to help them find their way. And some of that means stumbling, and like me being okay with them stumbling.
Yeah.
Like, right, like looking at report cards and being like, ugh. But like being like, it's all part of the system. And if they're not leaving our conversations feeling shame,
Right.
or like they're not good enough in some way, like I consider that a win. Right.
Right.
Because I think about like when I went to college that first semester, same thing with my spouse Chris, like it was rough making that transition into like independence, and like helping them in like middle school and high school figure out like what are my study skills. Like we were even having a conversation around like a life skill is figuring out how your boss, your teacher, your employee, your customer, how they think, or like what are the ways they want things packaged. Because like that's a good life skill. Like you might not like this teacher, but you got to figure out what that teacher wants
Yep.
for you to produce, because there will always be people in your life who don't work the same way you do, or you don't think they grade fairly or evaluate fairly. But like, how will you figure it out if it's important for you to get the contract or get the particular grade or whatever it is?
That's right. And I love that framework of like walking alongside to develop valuable values aligned life skills as opposed to like perform in all these different areas at this like
Right,
at this threshold using these metrics. It's like, whoa,
right,
oh God.
right.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that feels so much better and
Mhm,
empowering. And like that's a part of parenting that I love. And so
mhm,
even realizing like, oh, this is where like this is where
mhm.
the good stuff is. This is where it's juicy and lovely and I don't have to do all of these other things. And
Yeah,
it's not always going to feel great, right? And it's going to make things harder maybe in some ways, but like I would prefer this path so much more.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Okay, so lots of parenting stuff. What else are you thinking about in terms of like lessons learned or releasing from 2023 and trying to like usher in 2024
Mm.
outside of family or parenting?
Yeah, it's so funny. I've been trying to think of like what's my word or my phrase
Mm,
for 2024. And I'm having a hard time. Like part of it is I want to be present in a different way. But I
mm,
was like, but presence isn't the word. And I think right now it probably will shift before we get into 2024. I think it's like I want to shift into a different gear. Like all of what we're talking about is like themes of shifting into a different gear. And by that I mean like I was so overcommitted this fall, I talked about last time, that like I just need to say no to more things.
mm.
But it's not a year of no. I did that a couple years ago. It's not a year of no per se, but it's a year of saying yes to different things. Like don't I'm not going to try to grow my business. I'm not going to try to teach a new class. I'm not going to try to learn another skill that will help me as an entrepreneur or as a psychologist per se. Like I think it's like, what are my hobbies? But like being okay with just like noticing and observe, like I want to be awake in my decision making.
Yes.
Like, how am I making choices? And if I didn't like the busyness of this fall, how do I not like, how can I notice when I start to, because here's my observation of myself. I go through periods of like being overcommitted, and then I say, okay, I'm going to say no, or I'm going to like do better. And I do that for a season. and then I start to get restless,
Oh yeah.
right? So like I could
No
probably,
idea what you're talking about, Natalie.
right? Yeah, totally unique to me, right? So I could see me hibernating in the winter, and then the spring emerges and I start to slowly pick up. And by the fall,
It's insane.
a year we could be talking, I could be telling you the same stuff again,
Totally.
right? So it's like, how can I be awake to notice what are the little things I am doing that eventually accumulate into like it's too much.
I love that. Do you, here's the $1,000,000 question. Do you have ideas about what you're going to do on a day-to-day basis to like have that happen? And is it
You know,
different than what you've been doing or?
yeah, it's a good question. I don't have that figured out yet. I think I need to do like quarterly check-ins.
I love that.
Like sometimes they talk about like entrepreneurs should do like quarterly, like some people do it like a weekend, some people do like a week where they just like it's kind of like reflection and planning and design. And I almost feel like it's
Mm,
different than meditation because I feel like I still meditate every day.
yeah,
That doesn't quite get at it.
agree.
Um, and I think I feel like in some ways you hold me accountable just because we have
Yeah,
these chats.
same.
Um, so I can start to see if I'm adding things. But I also think I need like a full year with like just the things that exist in my life without adding anything major in. And I think I just need to check in if I'm adding anything major, like it's more than a one-off thing, that like I really need to be checking in with myself. It's like, why?
Yeah,
Why would I say yes to this?
yeah. I love that. And like investigating it with like love, right? Not like, why am I saying yes to this? But like truly, why? And sitting and like and waiting to see what comes up. And I agree.
Mhm.
It's and half of it, I think, for me is just to your point, taking the time to do that, right?
Mhm.
Every year for years now, I've said I would take at least 24 hours once a quarter to like go to a hotel or an Airbnb and like because entrepreneurs, the personal and the professional are so intertwined,
Yeah.
just to be really intentional and reflect and whatever. And I don't ever do it because
Mhm.
I think we just get moving
Mhm.
and it's hard to like hit the brakes once everything is so in motion.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. I've been thinking a lot. So it's funny how, is it manifesting? Is it like our brain is prone to seeing what we've articulated, out loud or in written form? I don't know. But, 2021 wound up being like a year of like investigating like my heart and my mind, right? Like, where do I stand? What do I want to do? So many enormous changes and struggles. And then I declared that 2023 was going to be the year of the body because, like, the toll that 2022 took on my body has been profound. And then, like, my body has fallen apart in ways that I simply never could have expected, right? But how interesting that I decided that 2022 was going to be the year of the body, where I was going to like take very deep, slow care of my physical self. Um, and I've done that. And it's not like wrapping it up with a bow, but like I've learned a lot and I've put in some practices and whatever. So I feel like for me, 2024 is going to be the year of like my soul.
Mhm.
Where it's like I've spent the last 2 years burning down so much in my life has like burned down like very intentionally.
Mhm.
And all of that felt so painful, but now it's like I've cleared space. Like the ground is anew. Um, and so every decision now is like, how does this feel to my soul? Like, does
Mhm.
this feed my soul or does it deplete me? And if it does, then maybe I don't do it at all. Or how can I reimagine it so that it depletes me less, right? Because your fall is my spring, really
Mhm.
not gonna do.
Mhm.
that again, but if I think for me, if I bring it back to like, does this feel good in my soul? That's
Mm,
gonna be one of the ways that I switch it up from just like meditating or
mm.
my
Oh, I
spiritual
love that.
because
Oh, I
that's
love.
what's missing, you know?
Yeah. I remember a couple years ago, I had a yoga teacher who talked about the full body yes. And so I did that for a long time. Still do it, just not as it's probably become more automatic. Like the full body yes is like for me, like mind, body, spirit says
Yeah.
yes, right? I don't have to overthink it. It's just like a all of me says that. And I'm remembering this other yoga teacher who would talk about kind of like the Hindu Trinity, which was kind of like these goddesses or gods, who would talk about like three different uh, seasons we could be in. One is like burn it all down. The other one is like a period of growth, and the other one is kind of maintenance. And
Mm,
so it's been helpful to me the last couple of years to think of that. So like similar to you being in the like burn it down phase for a while. And I think I want to enter into like maintenance,
mm,
like what maintenance looks like for me. And I think that means interrogating the little voice inside of me that says I'm not doing enough,
yes.
right? Like it's not loud, which is
Right.
why sometimes I don't catch it. Like I think when I was younger, that voice was loud and it drove a lot of my decision making.
For
Like
sure.
my value was in how much I could accomplish. And I feel like now it's more subtle.
Mhm.
Um, but I feel like if I could do 2024 as a maintenance year, meaning like the core things are good,
Yeah.
right? And everything else is like little tweaks, but the
Yeah.
core is good,
Hmm.
right? And so, like, can I savor that? And so anything I add is like in support of it's already good.
Yeah. Oh, I love that framework. I'm gonna take that for myself as well. Because I was getting a little caught up in like, but like I want to still grow. But I love the idea that all of the foundational elements are great, right? Like they're perfect as is. And like that doesn't mean that I can't change things or adapt things or tweak things or try new things, but it just means like I'm not messing with anything that is foundational and good. Um,
Mhm,
and I'm going to spend more time just appreciating those things,
mhm,
deepening those things. That's the other thing, like deep, not broad,
mhm,
rather than spinning my wheels about fixing things or adding things or, problem
mhm,
solving stuff,
mhm,
which I feel like can be a place that I can live, unfortunately.
mhm.
So I love that framework of a maintenance here. Yeah. Yeah. Which is so required after all of the burning and the,
I know,
oh my God, I'm
right?
fucking
Yeah,
tired.
yeah. And it's like after a while, it's like, what else is left? I mean, you did it.
Right. That's right.
Mhm. And it's so funny when it's kind of like when your mind starts to shift into this other gear, like you start to notice things that are similar to that. Like so like I saw this book recommended that was like basically like how to like simplify your life and like how to not grow your business, how like actually you could be more successful by doing less than doing more. Like it
Mm,
feels like, and then I'm starting to see like different group practice owners posts about like simplifying their systems or like or closing an office or so it feels like so many people are like coming to that also realization. There are of course other people out there who are burning things down, who are in a year of growth, but like that's not who I'm attracted to these days right now because like even in this mastermind I'm in, I'm like I'm good. Like I don't want to launch a new product. I don't want to like I love my membership community. I love my clients. I love my clinicians in my practice. I just love all these things and can I just savor that?
yeah. Oh, that sounds so good. That sounds so good. And it sounds simple, but we know in practice it's not
Yeah,
always, right? I think especially
yeah,
for entrepreneurs, especially for anybody divergent, like yeah, who's been considered themselves or perceived as high achieving, like those things are tricky. It's been one of my lessons of 2023 is like I have taken a lot off my plate and I've been, playing and experimenting with rest more. So it's been an interesting awareness for me to come to that, like, time is not it. I can have a lot of time and still find myself rushing through making dinner, right? And it's because I'm not being intentional enough about the time that I have. And so like getting clear about what the priorities are and really anchoring into those things rather than like trying to just like, oh, I'll just do a little bit more here, a little bit more there. And then I still find myself rushed. But what you said though, I want to go back to, because it was so simple, but it felt profound, is you said, but at some point, what else is there to do? And that, I could cry just thinking about that, because that statement is so antithetical to like what we're always hearing and this like constant like self-growth and
Mhm.
growth in every way, self-growth, business growth, like like activities for your kids, just like more, 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 just like this consumerism, never ending more, including self-growth. And so to think like, if you've done very deep, burning down work
Mhm.
of the foundational elements of your life, your partnership, your relationship with your children, like your friends, your family of origin, your relationship to like work and productivity, whatever that looks like for different people, like you can just be done.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean you won't make small changes as they arise, right? Like
Mhm.
we stay flexible, we stay nimble, we're not rigid, we're the river,
Mhm.
not the rocks. But that like we get to be done.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and to think like I was in this training last week that was basically about like what are your 5 strengths based on this, one of those many assessments that are out there. And what I appreciated is like my 5 strengths are like core elements of me, right? Like being strategic, like thinking about the future, like I like to make things better, um, like I like to achieve, like none of that stuff is going away.
Right.
So like maintenance for me, when other people like friends are looking at me, they're like, you're not slowing down. You're not, but it's like I'm slowing down in my version of
That's
me.
right.
Right. Like I'm
That's
always
right.
someone who wants to learn a new skill, but I can do it in a way that's not frenetic. That's
That's
not like, oh, I check. What's the next thing? Check. What's the
yes.
next thing? Like I can do it from a different place. Like, so I think for me, like that's the part that sometimes is hard to describe, that like the embodiment is different. It's like I still am who I am. Like we could be talking a year from now and I could tell you the many accomplishments I had from the year. But I imagine the energy of it will be different.
And that's it. And that subtlety makes all the difference, right? Because it's like, have I been slowing down? Nick and I alternate meal planning and grocery shopping and like meal cooking every other week, which is so great.
Love that.
Oh, yes, I love it too. Um, and I'm like, maybe I can actually enjoy cooking again if I'm not solely responsible for it anymore.
Mhm.
And I'm still not. But it's because I'm not prioritizing it, and I'm not giving it the energy that it deserves. And so it's like, I do actually enjoy cooking when I leave enough time for it and I'm not rushed. And maybe I make myself a glass of like, yeah, a cup of like yummy tea, and I put on a playlist that I love, right? Like it is completely about the energy that we embody. For me, it's completely about the energy that I embody, the intention that I have, and that it is not outcome driven, but it is about being here and doing this thing, right? And so to the outside, it may look exactly the same, but like that energy shift is everything.
Mm.
Yeah, everything. I want more of
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Yeah. More of that for sure.
Yeah.
I'm excited for us, a year of
I
maintenance.
am too. I am too. Yeah, and I hope that like maybe we can, not like a gross accountability way, but like I would love to be checking in with each other,
Mhm.
throughout 2024, and to just be curious about where we are and if we're where we want to be, and and just be curious about how that whole process.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel I'm really looking forward to it. Like, oh, like, ooh, already like just being in the present moment and noticing how it unfolds.
Yeah. Yeah. Good stuff.
Yay. Well,
Awesome.
so great to have spent 2023 with you and looking forward to 2024. And I hope that our listeners will keep checking out Rest and Awaken wherever
Absolutely.
you listen to podcasts.
Share, comment, like, subscribe, tag a friend, anything, that would be awesome. Yeah, and wishing everybody a fantastic holiday and start to the new year.
Yeah.
Cool.
All
Good
right.
seeing you.
Good seeing you too. Take
Bye.
care.